Okay, thank you, Jessica. Good morning and howdy to everyone. I hope you all are enjoying this very special virtual TPEC. Today, we're very, very pleased and honored to have a true supporter of Texas A&M and Smart Grid Center, Mr. Valentine Emesih from CenterPoint Energy, to join us as the keynote speaker. Valentine is CenterPoint Energy's Vice President for Operations, Node Technology, and Cybersecurity, who leads several technology teams, including advanced digital teams, advanced analytics, and cybersecurity. Valentine has over 30 years of utility industry experience. He earned a bachelor's degree from electrical engineering at University of Texas at Austin, but he has chosen to come to the bright side and join us for this event. And a master's degree in electrical engineering from Auburn, and he's also a licensed professional engineer. On a personal note, I can attest to you that over the past 6-7 years that I've known him, he has been a steadfast and extremely loyal supporter of all things that are happening in the energy and power area at Texas A&M. He's very, very supportive of the Smart Grid Center. So on behalf of all of us, we should thank you and your team for the support, and we look forward to your keynote speech. The podium is yours.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Shea. Let me share the deck I'll be using for our discussion today. Yeah. All right. So what I wanted to do, it's always fun to be asked to speak to students. You never really know, how to begin. But I wanted to, touch on some stuff that probably will be familiar to most of our students. Which is essentially talk about trends that are impacting our energy delivery business. 2020 certainly has taught all of us quite a bit of lessons about change. We've had to, deal with a global pandemic. Hopefully all of you guys are safe wherever you are. I wish you the best. Let's continue to keep it safe. 6 feet distance. When you're speaking without mask, always mask up. Keep your hands washed and avoid touching your face. So those safety admonitions are still valid. As we struggle through this time. But this is a time of change, and as double-E's, I think we probably, recognize that change is not only constant; it's actually accelerating. I think double-E's probably can relate to this a little bit more than people from most other professions. So I wanted to talk today briefly about some of the mega trends. I call them mega trends because they're going to take a little bit of time to fully mature, but they are trends nonetheless. And I think you probably have, this won't be too much of a surprise, but, hopefully, I share some of my own personal insight. And then I'll talk a little bit about specific, trends, that are, more immediate. And then I'll share a little bit of, what we at CenterPoint Energy, what we're doing in this space. My area is, I deal with operational technology, so I may focus my discussion just a little bit more in my own area. So I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing on the infrastructure side. Just give you a high-level thought on how we're thinking of data and analytics, and then cybersecurity and risk management. So just for context. CenterPoint Energy is an energy delivery company. We have operations in 8 states. We have an electric business in Houston, the Houston area, as well as in northern Indiana. And then the rest of our business, what you call gas LDCs, local gas delivery companies. Going all the way up north, through the middle of the country, down to Texas. I wanted to share this just for context. So in terms of mega trends, these terms are actually the terms used by Gartner, but I think they work. The very first item they talk about, that that is impacting in the long run energy delivery is digitalization, right? I think digitalization, most of us have heard it. There are all kinds of, you're going to hear a whole lot of D's from me, as I go through this, and hopefully, it relates. Digitalization, simply is talking about, what happens when things, become digital, right? They become easier to share, they become easier to access, they become easier to distribute. And with digitalization, there are certain behaviors that also become apparent. I think Peter Diamandis, did a good job trying to explain that in one of his books. Peter Diamandis is, one of the founders of Singularity University. He talks about digitalization in the sense that when things digitalize, there are certain characteristics they tend to have. Number one, they start deceptively. Deceptively means, when they are doubling in small scale, you don't notice them, right? So, if you think of digital cameras, when you had a 0.1 megapixel camera, most people didn't notice. When it doubled to 0.2, nobody noticed. But once it hit 1 megapixel, people started noticing and they started scaling. It became an exponential, when in fact it has always remained an exponential. Also, when things digitalize, they become somewhat disruptive. They become disruptive in the sense that new players can easily get into the system and actually disassemble the value chain and provide value in areas where incumbent companies, may not be able to provide values or have not thought of, making things a little bit more efficient. Another element of digitalization is also the demonetization aspect of it. As things become digitalized, money becomes less of an issue, right? So if you think in the terms of a power plant, right? In the old days, if you wanted to build a heavy power, your own power plant, you had to go buy all these big engines. Today, you can go buy one cell array and use it to power a street light or a security light in your home. So the lift is becoming lighter and lighter. And if you think of it in terms of computation, that you can see, how much power we now have in a cell phone, in a cell material that we have. So digitalization makes possible for all those things to happen. So it comes in a deceptive way. It can be disruptive, and it allows demonetization, and it also allows dematerialization. Where you have several things now combined into one. The cell phone is probably one of the best examples. The cell phones we carry today, serve as music players. They serve as your small computer. They serve as a camera. They have about 10 to 20 different functions that were previously served, by other individual devices that are overtaken. So this element of digitization is playing through all of what we do on the energy side as well. The systems that we built, our company, we started deploying smart meters, a little over 10 years ago, and it has actually changed, the way we deal and the way we manage work inside the company. So the second, large scale deal, the second mega trend there is decentralization. Decentralization actually is probably a little bit more easily understood with what's going on in the power scale. And again, since most of the folks on the call are double E's, you can relate to that. The old power companies used to be vertically integrated. You dispatch, you go from you own the generation, you own the transmission, you own the distribution network, and the customers are yours. That world has changed. It changed in Texas, many years ago. We started deregulating, and that deregulation trend, continues today. As you start getting distributed generation, and as you start, having prosumers, that continues to impact, the way we, run our business. So decentralization continues to be one of the mega trends that we deal with. Of course, the third D there is decarbonization. Decarbonization essentially, is talking about removing carbon from the atmosphere. Our new president, President Biden, has pledged to spend $400 billion in clean air over the next 10 years. 400 billion is a large amount of money, right? It's actually significantly larger than what all the other presidents have spent during the same period. During the Bush era, he focused a little bit, this is the senior Bush, he focused more on nuclear. As you go down, towards the Obama era, most of those presidents probably spent about $100 billion during that time period. But the new president is actually placing a focus on this, so it is something that we'll continue to see. Everyone is head of, the Paris Agreement, that will continue to hold sway in our industry. Nearly all large electric utility companies have committed, to get into net zero carbon by 2050. So most of the folks, most of the students on the call, you're going to have to be the ones that will deal with this. Because the last one is democratization. Democratization means that power is available to the masses, right? I think with consumerization, you can see where you can choose to become your own full power plant in your home, where you're not dependent on incumbent players to do what you got to do. But these are mega trends. I think it will take quite a bit of time, for all of this to fully roll out. As a large utility, we are constantly, looking to see how our business is impacted, by some of these larger trends. Now for the more specific, areas, as you start coming a little bit, closer, we still continue to hear, that ultimately what people want, in general, will be clean, reliable, affordable, secured means of energy, getting the energy they need to run their days. And to do that, the trend that is beginning to push us a little further will be the trend of resilience. If you looked at in 2020, there were 20 named storms, that passed through the Gulf, right? We as a utility company are constantly asked to make our systems more resilient. Yeah, resilient means essentially, that you have the ability to recover from disturbances, as quickly as possible. So to either withstand the disturbances or recover as quickly as possible. That will continue to influence the way we spend money on our side. Electrification is an even bigger trend. Today, substantial portion of electric energy is used at the residential, probably in equal proportions, residential, commercial, and industrial. Going into the future, electrification, this will be electric cars, electric ports, electric transportation, other forms of electric transportation will have a much higher part to play in terms of energy consumption. IoT, this is the technology, the distributed Internet of Things technology will continue to play a part. And of course, consumers, want to treat all purchases just the same way they treat a purchase from Amazon. So again, the large theme for us is, clean, reliable, affordable, and secured energy, at least for my company. So this is, I was trying to show, this is a piece of, this is a page I pulled off of NREL report. As you can see, transportation will probably provide the next ride in terms of energy usage, starting almost immediately. countries like Norway have substantially increased the percentage of electric vehicles, that are coming into their system. We are expecting this, to be the case in the US. It will probably take a little bit of time, but it, very likely to happen. If you look to the right, what this chart is also saying is that if this happens, we probably will have possibly higher and sharper and more frequent peaks. Yeah. So, part of what we'll have to continue to do is figure out how to deal, with all of this as they come into the ecosystem that we use to deliver electricity today. So if I go back and if I come more narrowly to CenterPoint Energy, part of what we've been doing, and this is what we're telling our investors, is we are still, so a traditional utility like ourselves, we own $30 billion worth of assets. We continue to invest. Our utilities are in areas, where we see growth, where people still, depend heavily on use of electricity. So we are focusing our energy on capital investment, to address the strong customer growth in those areas. We are also in the Indiana area. We have coal plants. We used to have we have about 1,700 megawatts of coal. Most of that coal will need to be retired in the next couple of years. So we are making quite a bit of making significant investments, into renewables in that area. In the Houston area, based on the way the Texas market is set up, we can build generation. So our strategy here is to build our infrastructure in such a way that we can allow the cleaner and the more renewable energy to integrate effectively into our system, especially being in Houston. When we started this call, Dr. Overby mentioned that we have a ton of load. Texas area has 25% of the load in the whole of ERCOT, right? Of course, the peak load in ERCOT is about somewhere close to 75,000 megawatts. So that will give you a little bit of an idea. At some point, people are going to need we're going to have more renewable energy coming into Houston. Our job as the local utility company in that area is to build the infrastructure to make that happen, and to make it happen in a manner that it will be resilient, reliable, and cleaner for the masses. Yeah. So again, this is if you look in the Houston area, we actually investing quite a bit of money. Yeah. And then we'll be investing quite a bit of money in the next 5 years. Right now we have a Bailey to Jones Creek, transmission line. It's a 55-mile transmission line. It's actually it's heading towards the Freeport area, and we have a ton of. We're building 29 new or upgraded substations in the next 5 years. We'll continue to figure out a way to make places like Texas Medical Center more reliable. Texas Medical Center, most people don't realize it's almost like a city by itself. So we continue to build a pipeline that will make it possible for these cleaner forms of energy to be integrated into the system. Again, reliability is heavy for us. Like I mentioned earlier, I said 20 storms in the Gulf. It was actually 8 that came through the Gulf, but I think there were about 20 named storms, in 2020. Part of what we're trying to do is, look at the way we build our infrastructure to better withstand, these kinds of events. Our customers are no longer, willing to wait for 3 weeks for their power to be restored. This was, the case, when we had Hurricane Ike a few years ago. So as a utility, we are investing heavily in terms of hardening our infrastructure, so that we can keep our communities safe and keep our employees safe and keep power reliable, for our end users. Again, these are in the Houston area, part of what we've been doing also is investing quite a bit in transmission to support utility scale solar. Even though the solar installations are not ours, it's our job to make, provide a platform for those things to come in and get integrated. If you look at the figure that I have here on the screen, you have a whole bunch of yellow dots. All those yellow dots are utilities, utility scale projects. We're expecting about 11 of them to be commissioned in the Houston area, between now and 2022, and we expect more. Yeah. So this is significantly affecting, the kinds of investment. Again, you can see the themes playing out. The carbonization has an influence. Reliability, has an influence. Decentralization, is having an influence. These units, these generating units, are not owned by incumbent utilities or even, the normally, large utility providers that you know of. Yeah. And if you take, let me go back, one bit. If you take the state of Texas, in terms of decarbonization, state of Texas is actually a really heavy player in this. Where by far I think number one in wind. Wind capacity. We probably have about 25,000 megawatts of installed capacity. In terms of utility scale solar, I think we're number 2 in the United States. Battery storage, I don't know where we are, but I'm sure we are somewhere in the top 5. So even here in Texas, we are responding, and I think this actually started, a few years back, when Governor Perry was here. So this program, these are things that started happening a few years ago, and probably will continue to happen, as we move into the future. Yeah. So from a technology point of view, where does technology come into play here, right? Because we are digitizing. I think one of the very first mega trend we talked about was digitalization. CenterPoint Energy as an enterprise, and of course with the help of the state legislature in Texas, we deployed smart meters about 10 years ago, about starting 2009. We've actually gone ahead and deployed smart meters even for our industrial customers that, typically interval type meters. Our gas business is also deploying smarter meters, that can be interrogated, remotely, and can have automatic shut off to them as well. So all of a sudden, we have this, we have massive amounts of data about our system. On the distribution system side, we've deployed a whole bunch of intelligent distribution devices. We're very likely going to continue to install sensors. Our substations are being retrofitted with other sensors, transformer monitoring, breaker equipment monitoring type devices. So data and analytics is becoming a major capability that we're attempting to develop within our enterprise. Essentially what the message that the industry has been getting, and the message we've been trying to play for our people, is that we ought to treat data as an asset, just the same way we treat our transmission lines and the same way we treat our gas pipelines. We need to treat data as an asset. And we need to enable all of our decisions to be based on data, not based on opinions, right? We want analytics to power that. For that to actually happen, it requires a concerted effort as an organization. So this is not a typical information technology type project. This is a capability for us that we're attempting to build in our enterprise. So first of all, the first key element of what we try to do is to create business value, on my analytics team. So our first focus is, what does the business want? The business may say, I want to reduce my truck rolls, or I want to, optimize my cost, or I want to optimize the way I do work dispatch. I want to improve my efficiency. I want to improve my vegetation management. So we start all of our discussions with the business based on the value that we're looking to create. So we have a boatload of use cases that are constantly, under negotiation, in terms of, what we do with it. And, we are training our entire enterprise, not just technology people, not just technical people, on how to think of new ways to create value using the data assets we have, using the capabilities of analytics, and using the, capabilities of data. So a second part of our strategy is actually to build an enhanced organizational capability. I was, just to date myself, I was an undergraduate about when, Lotus 123, came out. And we started using Lotus to do very complicated linear programming type operations, as a student. So at that time, when I started working, most people, weren't using spreadsheets to do anything, right, in a corporate environment. Where we are with analytics today is that young folks coming out from college know a whole lot more than people that we already have existing in the company. So what we're attempting to do is to bridge that gap, get all of our enterprise and all of our business areas understanding how to speak the language of data, right? So we do have what we call a data literacy program within our enterprise. And then we are encouraging what we call community of analytics. We've created Center of Excellence, for analytics within our organization to help evangelize, how to use data to create business value for the enterprise and how to leverage the massive amounts of data that we collect every day from our assets and from the systems that we run. Of course, the other leg of the stool is the technologies that we use, to perform analytical, that's where that is more technology centered, right? Again, part of what we do on our team is, avail ourselves of some of the technologies that exist either in the cloud or even things that we have to buy on premise, understand, how machine learning and artificial intelligence, come into play, and continue to mature what we do as we go from, base reporting to becoming more predictive, to becoming more prescriptive in terms of the business value we create for our enterprise. We cannot do all of this unless we create some kind of a data governance. So data governance is an important piece for us. Data governance essentially, is the discipline of organizing your data, so that you can get it to do what you want it to do, and you can, make it available for the enterprise and for them to take full advantage of the resources we have in that area. So I bring this up for students. When we hire brand new engineers or analysts, or whatever role you are coming into play, part of the capability that we are expecting, to see in our students is that ability to recognize that, there are new ways that we can use data to enhance what we do in operation. So this is an example. This part of this project, we probably worked on this with A&M, at least an initial part of it before we went into commercializing. This is just tree trimming. Most people don't realize that we pay a lot of money to trim trees, as a utility company, right? And part of what we've done is we've used data and analytics, to use satellite imagery to come up with more intelligent ways, to actually, perform that function. Yeah, and when you do that, the savings goes straight to the ratepayers. So it goes to talk about, when I talked about what our customers want, they want a clean, they want a reliable, they want an affordable and secure system. They also want a resilience. So when you trim trees efficiently, you actually, the cost goes back to the ratepayers. You reduce the instances of, instantaneous power losses. It's all, everything is happy for the customer. Again, we're leveraging the data we have. We're leveraging the data that others have and the technologies that others have to make this happen. It's just one simple example, that, a typical person in vegetation has to become familiar with how to do this. This is a capability that they wouldn't have worried about a few years back. So cybersecurity, it's always another piece that, because of the sensitivity of cybersecurity, very often you don't get into very detailed discussion of what you do in that space. But I felt that at a very high level, I ought to share with you guys the way I think of it, from a leadership point of view, and the mechanics of what actually happens, can go in any direction that you want. The way we think about it is that it is a risk mitigation. As an electric utility, here are the key risks. These are not all the risks, but these are fairly substantial business risks. As we start deploying more digital technologies into the core of the business that we do, our risks increase. You guys, you probably heard in the news about solar wind event. So those kinds of events are going to continue to happen. The question then becomes, as you become more dependent on digital technology, what kinds of disciplines do you need to place within your organization to ensure, that you keep your systems as reliable, you address these risks, essentially continue to make sure that you don't get into trouble with lack of resiliency for your critical system. That you don't, get into risks, supply chain risks, third party or supply chain risks, that you don't get into regulatory trouble with the regulators, that you don't inadvertently expose customer data or customer behavior, that you don't let others steal your intellectual property, and that you don't get into reputational issues. So here are some of the principles that from my point of view, that we have to worry about, and that's what we tell our people to worry about, whether they are on the corporate side, or on the engineering side, or even on the operational technology side. We've got to constantly think of what I call proactive risk management. Before we buy, right from the point in time we start making a decision to buy, from anyone. We begin the risk management process. And once you go through that, of course, the next thing you got to do is you got to protect your information. You got to protect your digital assets. So there are all kinds of techniques, that cybersecurity people. And then we have to constantly look for ways to improve resiliency and recoverability. In cybersecurity, it will be foolhardy to think that you will not be compromised, right? So we always assume that there is a possibility that I can be compromised. If I do, how do I recover very quickly from it? And how do I, make sure that the impact is somewhat minimized? That's the reason why you have to deploy a very robust crisis and incident management process. Things do happen. You can see what the government agencies that were susceptible to solar winds are attempting to do at this time. In our case, because we recognize that digital business is going to continue to happen, we're building our program in such a way that we can help our business accelerate that. As things become more digital, we've got to make sure that we still protect the risks that I have listed on the left side of the house. And of course, we have to govern it across the entire company. So we have a fairly disciplined. We're always looking to have a fairly disciplined governance program. The governance program talks about, being able to recognize where the critical pieces are, making sure you have administrative and technical controls in place to do what you got to do. So really, if you think about it, the objectives are simple. I listed this in very simple language, that, you don't need to be a technical person, so you got to know what you have, you got to know what is important, and we got to know what we're doing at any point in time. And then we have to implement, controls, and, measures to protect our people, to protect people in general, not just our people, our employees and our customers. And then also protect our assets. We've got to have a way to catch things, when things go wrong. When things are not going the way we want it, we've got to figure out and make sure that we have appropriate ways to stop them in an appropriate time frame. So we have, what we call CSOC, Cybersecurity Operations Center, that constantly, monitors what all is going on within our enterprise. Just the same way you will have a transmission control center or a distribution control center. We've got to prioritize and react to incidents. And, as quickly as possible, when we do have events, we want to return to a good state of operation as soon as possible and as soon as reasonable. So these are at a very high level. These are, just principles. You may be asking, why do I go all the way to, talk about this with students? I wanted to kind of give our students a feel of, what, their careers may look like, as they start, getting into a work life. When I graduated many years ago, when I had my undergraduate, the only required programming class at UT at the time was Fortran, right? It was a 2-hour class, and you were expected to kind of learn that on your own. I don't know how many programming classes, not that I program anymore. I don't know how many programming classes that I've had to learn. I don't know how many new technologies that I've had to learn in the last few years. But what I'm saying is that the new set of engineers and specialists that we hire, there are certain key pieces that I think you need to put in your back pocket, or at least understand. I think you need to understand, how digitalization is impacting the way the business is run. You need to understand the way, the business is, how we make business decisions, to focus on what the customers want. We need to, fully understand how to use data, how to leverage that data to make the business, to meet the objectives of the business. The business has 3 main objectives. Number 1 is to grow that business, whether it's profit or non-profit. The objective is, number 1 objective is to grow. Second objective is to manage efficiently or to save cost. And of course, the third objective is to manage risk. Cybersecurity, because of digital, cybersecurity will continue to play an oversized role in terms of what we do in the future work environment. Sorry, I may have taken a little bit longer than planned, but I know this is really high level, but I wanted to at least share these thoughts with our students, and I'm glad to answer any questions you have. Thank you,
Valentine. Thank you for very, very thoughtful and I think high-levelly, important remarks. I think the D's are hopefully going to stay in students' mind. Jessica just reminded me that we probably are running a bit short in time because the next paper block is starting about 3-4 minutes. So we have time probably for a quick question if there are any from the audience. So maybe I'll get started. As you mentioned, the big driver of the demand growth is going to be in the vehicle side, vehicle electrification side. So what's your thought about, we have so many gas stations around Houston neighborhood and so on and so forth. Is companies like CenterPoint are going to kind of start investing into these charging stations, or you are going to let the third parties develop those and you will do the cooperative planning for that?
So yeah, so because we are a regulated entity, part of what we want to do is to provide a platform for that to happen. So we may actually, we have to still provide the facility to allow the charging stations to happen. But right now, we're working with the regulators to understand what our role is. Ideally, if you want everyone to have access, right, and you want a common platform for charging, it will be better to have an entity like CenterPoint Energy, do all of that, and essentially treat it as public good. But I don't think that's the reality in Texas, today, right? The reality is that companies, unregulated companies, already have charging stations, right? And they probably will not take kindly to a regulated company having to deploy them. It is. I think that those discussions are ongoing. Either way, we have a little bit of a role to play, because we can create the standards for those stations. We can create the standards for connectivity and the standards for measurement and validation. So that if you go to any one of those places, we can measure how much electricity you use and make sure that the appropriate entity gets charged for it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Valentine. I think Jesse is asking us to wrap it up because the next session is starting literally now. So
right.
Thank you so much, Valentine, for a very, very insightful keynote speech. And on behalf of TPEC, we appreciate you all for participating. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
So Jessica, I will turn it back to you.
She may have wandered off to the paper sessions, but
yeah. I think this session is probably we can just end this session.
It just closes because
we'll just close it. Thank you, Valentine. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And we look forward to having you on campus sometime soon. So
yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have
Bye.
a good day. Bye.